Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Yes, we're getting closer to the big game. And I bring that up because this gentleman harnesses the concept of the play within football to change your life, specifically coach you to greatness, whether you're an executive, C-suite level individual, you own a company, or you just want to make change in your life. Maybe you're feeling stuck. Maybe you're not really sure how to lead your team. He can get it done with what he calls the OpenPlaybook, something that he has designed. And wow, it's got so much insight. And we're gonna show you today how to apply it within your life and win the game, if you will. Larry Dodd is back with us on the program. How you doing?
Hey, great, Steve. How are you today?
Real good, real good. Good to have you back here. Before we even jump into this, I just had a flick in my head. Do you feel that everything we do is a play? If you think about it, how life goes on, everything is orchestrated, could come from a playbook when you think about it.
I think in a very general sense, that's true, right? But you think about accomplishment for a minute. Think about how we go about our daily lives. Does anybody really do or accomplish something completely alone? And if so, if they feel like they do, if they look closer, hasn't there been an influence? Like we talked in our first session about the person who influenced you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who saw something in you and invested himself or in your career. When we connect with others, we're stronger. When we connect with others, we're smarter. When we connect with others, we go faster with more confidence.
So I'm going to present and we already went to the other side of the field right now for a moment.
Right. Yeah.
What if somebody says to you, well, there's sometimes I just don't want to, I'm a team player. Yeah. But sometimes I just want to go it alone. I just want to, I don't want to say isolate, but I'm having a moment. I need some time. I just want to be off to the side and do my thing. Is there anything wrong with that?
Absolutely not. Sometimes we need that solitude. There's certain things in how we develop as people that can only occur in that space. They can only occur in those moments of silence and reflection. When we have so much noise, even this noise, even positive noise, even focused, exciting stuff, it 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 can be too noisy sometimes. And so the trick is being able to step back and reflect in those moments of quietness and think about what am I learning here and how do I apply it?
And even check in with yourself when you have all the distractions and things going on. I've even thinking lately, there's nothing wrong with saying to yourself or even writing down, how you feeling? How's it going? Others say it to you. How about you say it to yourself? Well,
Right.
here's what I'm feeling. I'm a little apprehensive about this coming up tomorrow. A little concerned about that. This is going really well over here. Just to check in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would take that even a step further. When you really look at a lot of the successful people who have gone before us in any endeavor, you start to see a lot of people will sit down and they'll keep a journal. They'll find a quiet time to reflect on what they learned that day, what they're thinking about, and
Yeah.
how they're going to approach it. Because sometimes in all the noise of the fight, we lose sight of what it is we're really about and what we're trying to do and how we can best do it.
Mm. Funny you mention a journal and writing it down. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say I only started keeping a journal about 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, and I keep a gratitude journal, so that's separate. This is just
Mm-hmm.
a dump of ideas and thoughts and what's going on. But in the beginning, I found myself writing a lot. And then after time, I found the paragraphs getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found myself almost not wanting to do it because I almost feel like I'm dumping on myself. For example, you have Debbie Downer. Somebody's, there's always negativity going on in my life. I felt like I was becoming that self to myself. And it kind of deflected me from continuing with my journal. But maybe I'm thinking I need to make sure I also look at the positive, because I looked at the
Mm-hmm.
journal as here's what's going on. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's how I'm processing the situation.
Right. Well, I mean, let's take a little closer look at that, okay? Let's think about what we're taught to think about as progress, as success, as winning. We're taught to think of it very much like a straight line. A right triangle, right? So you look, you have your line, you have your here, and then here's how people succeed and win.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Some of the people who succeeded most are the people who failed the most. Some of the people who are the most successful are the people who've got hit in the hardest and they got up. And it's when we redefine what it means to get up off the mat and get back in the fight, we start to see rather than this, like this for success, it's not like that at all. It's like this, something like that, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so if you can't be real with yourself in those quiet moments, if we can't step aside and say, it's okay, then how do we know how we can learn from that and make it better?
Yeah.
Ties right into playbook number 3, doesn't it? Giving our playbooks away.
You just did.
I just did. And if we're building somebody who's a leader, whether they're leading a company, whether they're leading a department, or whether they're leading a change in their life, don't we help them to go faster when they know that that's okay? In fact, that's part of all of it. How do they know? Because we went through it and we share it with them.
Why don't we go through the playbooks? We just, number 3 is share your playbook with others.
Mm-hmm. So the first playbook, right, is the playbook we're given. At the end of the day, it's almost like this playbook finds us. And we start to see what we do naturally. What's our natural way of thinking, feeling, and behaving? How do we show up? Why do we do some things easier than others? How does that influence what we choose to do going forward? Now, the shame here, Steve, and it really is tragic, so few people even look at it. So few people even take the time because we're caught up on titles. We're caught up on organization, shiny rocks, big houses, nice cars. How do I know? I did it. That's some of my playbook 3, right?
I got you.
So playbook 1 is that we don't look at that inherent fabric of who we are. So when we go to playbook 2, the playbook we develop, when the really playbooks, lots of playbooks, if we haven't looked at those strengths that we have, we're not really building it on a very good foundation. We're building it on something that may or may not be aligned with what we do well. What we do well gives us the power to be engaged. Being engaged gives us the power to grow and be successful. So the more that we know that person that looks back in the mirror, playbook 1, the more we can understand other people who are different than we are, clearly, and the more we can apply it. That's playbook 2. Whether it's a tangible path or whether it's something different. What is your playbook and how are you using it? And are you using it to its fullest extent? And then the third one, and I really think this is the most powerful one, playbook 3 we just talked about. How are you helping somebody else who's not as far along the path as you are? Steve, no matter where we're at in our career, no matter where we're at in our life or what we're doing, there's somebody looking at us and saying, how did they get there?
I want to address that. So, and we've skimmed playbook 3, the share with others playbook. What do you say to somebody that says, Larry, life is crazy for me right now. I got so much going on. I don't have the bandwidth to share my playbook and what's going on in my life, to help others. Maybe another time. I can't do it right now. How do you address that?
Well, it depends, right? We want to be selective, right? And how we build the strength of relationship with other people. We don't just lay it all out there, but when we're developing somebody, helping them to get stronger, helping them to grow, right? It takes a lot from us. And so if they don't have time, that's a pretty strong statement in itself. How are they allotting their time? How are they spending their time? How are they thinking about that investment of the only real asset that we ever really get? And that's our time. And is it being spent wisely, or are we chasing things that maybe are not so wise to chase? That might be one way to look at it. And so that begs the question is, how can you not have time?
I got you there. And some say there's always time. You can make the time. What about if somebody's just so overwhelmed with their current situation that they feel they don't have any more to give at this time? They want to. It's not that they're saying, no, I don't care about anybody else except myself.
Right.
They're at that that moment where there's a lot going on and they need to maybe revisit it, is that okay? Or, and the reason I'm asking this is are we missing something by not sharing the playbook, no matter what the situation?
I don't know, no matter what the situation. I want to go to the first part of what you just said is when they're so overwhelmed and we are so overwhelmed, maybe we haven't really looked at our playbook very closely. What's driving that what's overwhelmed feeling? Why do we feel that way? What are we doing that is it doesn't come naturally for us? And the most important thing here is awareness because awareness allows us to think about how do I add purpose to it and be more effective at what I'm doing and what's really dragging me down. So you really move between all three playbooks all the time, but you want to come back to center to think about what's driving that overwhelmness. Why is that there?
Hmm.
You ever try to do something that just wasn't you, but you had to do it? Does that invigorate you? Do you get excited about it? Do you lose
No,
track of time?
no,
No,
it's usually a commitment you made to somebody, and you're saying to yourself, "This is not me, but I'm doing it." And most people who do that are people pleasers, and
yeah.
there's a reason they're doing it.
And does it beat you up or does it give you energy? Do you get excited? Do you lose track of time? A flow state, right? Do you lose total track of time? Um, when you're so overwhelmed, sometimes you're overwhelmed because you're doing the things that do not align with the skills, talents, and temperament that you have.
Okay, I got you there, but there's I hate to say but and take the word but and throw it out there. And
Yeah.
it could be a situation where some things are out of your control. Let's say you got some health issues, you got some family issues. These need to be addressed. Let's be honest. Maybe that's not what you really want to be doing, but that's what you need to do at that time. And now that's taken up your time, your bandwidth. We only got so much to give. Where I'm
Hmm.
going with this is in those situations where there's a lot going on, not just, I got to listen, the bane of my existence is invoices. I mean that. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
invoices again. I'm going to check with bookkeeper, all that. Blah, 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 blah. I don't like doing that, but it's, sometimes
Right.
it needs
Right.
needs attention. If it's a situation where it's a personal thing going on, you got a lot happening there. If you are able to share your playbook and you find a way to push it forward, will you feel those benefits? And even though your life is kind of in a tornado at the moment, will it bring you satisfaction, just some maybe a little bit of joy, but we don't see it because we're in the middle of it.
Well, most of the time, our biggest lessons we don't see because we're in the middle of it, right?
Mm.
And there's a value to hindsight. I mean, one of my favorite books ever that I read is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And he talks about his experience in a concentration camp and how he survived and how hard it was. But he taught us in that book one thing that always stood out for me, and that's that we need to think about what we can control and what we can't control. And when we focus on what we can control, it allows us to gain a certain peace. When when we combine that with letting go of what we can't control, then it allows us to be in a space that's productive. It doesn't take all the pain away, it doesn't take the frustration away, but allows us to think about what's the one thing that we can do. And there's always one thing we always control every time, every decision, every choice. It's our reaction to whatever's happening, right? It's our response. And so if there's something beyond my control, my response might be doing the best that I can do in the situation. So if it's a sick family member, helping as much as I can, realizing that there's certain things that I can't change about that. But what I can change is my reaction and how I respond to that and what I do. And so sometimes we get lost in trying to control the things that are uncontrollable, and they so overwhelm us that we lose sight of doing what we can control and being able to make a situation better. I mean, trying to control the uncontrollable is pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
You can't. That's where I think a lot of people go wrong, and thinking that you can control people, situations, but spot on. You said it before, Larry. Everything's a choice. We have
Mm-hmm.
a choice. We
You have
can
a
make a
choice.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't control something, but you can control how you react to it.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And where that stress and that overwhelm tends to come, Steve, is that when we try to control what we can't control, it it it's a losing game, right? It's a losing game. We can't make some things different,
Right.
but we can respond to it and make our response a better response, and we can learn from it. And so sometimes with the overwhelm, that for me is what really helps. But being humans, it it's part of being human. It's part of being alive. Is that those things happen, those moments happen. Understanding where you're at in that stream of activity or consciousness is what helps us get through it. And sharing our playbook means we don't have to do it alone.
Well, you're right about that. As soon as you start speaking with somebody about what you've mastered so far in life, you're starting a dialogue. Maybe they'll share something with you that you've got going on. Hey, by the way, did you ever think about? Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Interesting. How about some other real world applications to the playbooks?
Sure. Um, well, let's put it into a business setting. And a lot of my experience and my history in business has been working with companies that had grown really fast, right? And when you grow really fast, you find that what you did yesterday doesn't work as well as what you have to do today, right?
Mm,
It
mm,
because it's different. You have a bigger organization, you have more complexity, you have to diversify, you have to get people doing things in a different way. Now, there's an old saying about change. Change, everybody loves change until they're the ones that have to change, right? I'm the same way. It's a great idea until I have to change. And so take technology. What's one of the biggest ideas in technology changes is AI, right? Everybody's talking about it, every channel.
mm.
What's gonna happen? Well, now we're into and fear and commitment, right? Right? Fear and trust. And so let's think about when we bring a new system into an organization, when we ask people to change, because that's what I've been asked to do over and over again. It's invigorating and it's exhausting. Most
Mm,
people think the change is the computer system that we're bringing in. It's not the change.
mm.
It is not the change. It is the symptom of change because change occurs in you and it occurs in me. It's a human thing. And we mistake the change in the system that we're bringing in, the tangible thing we can touch and feel, with the only true place that change actually occurs for people, and that's inside in their heart, right? So working with companies applying the playbooks, um, my first goal in coming in is to learn, tell me about that person. What do they do well? What do they get them excited? What's their story? What strengths, whispers of strengths do I start to see? And yeah, it comes through in things like Clifton Strengths. It's a pretty direct path to it, right?
Hmm.
But it comes through when you bump into somebody in the hallway, when you go into their office, when you go into their workspace. What do they have in their workspace? Why is that picture there? Oh, wow, tell me about that. What do you do this weekend? And you start to develop an understanding for that person and who they are um, from a strength perspective that maybe they don't even know. And so we start reinforcing those strengths and bringing that application into the changes happening in the organization. But that occurs between the manager and the person working for them. Does not occur easily, and it takes a long time to build that trust.
Trust is everything.
Trust is everything. Not trust in the outcome, trust in the process, right? Trust in the process. And the outcome will take care of itself if people trust the process.
What about people trusting other people that the process will be executed properly?
That's the biggest part of trust, right? It's so easy so go back to our example of the computer system. We have great big long binders of stuff or files of stuff that tells us these are all the things that you need to do and these are the steps you need to do. None of that addresses change. A human's going to say, wow, we've been doing it the other way. I don't know why we need to do it this way. Can I do it? Do they want to get rid of me? Am I afraid? Am I going to be able to make the leap? Right? All of those are human things, right? And so when you can look somebody in the eye and you know their story, you know what they have and how you start to know it about where their strengths lie. Now we've got something that we can develop and we can work with that person around the symptom of change. And the idea is that with time, people start to trust it. But it only takes one time to go against that, and you have to go back to square one and you got to rebuild it.
How do you get to the point where people trust the person that's responsible for the process? And I've worked for companies, one in particular, where they had some managers there and nobody really trusted them. Wasn't genuine. You could
Yeah.
feel it. And it wasn't me. I just sit back and I listen. And this is, everybody would say the same thing in different situations. And then they got a different manager and he was a little bit better, but he wasn't, he had his own agenda. You know, it was one of the open door policy, doors open. Nobody wanted to walk through those doors. It just was very uncomfortable. Now in this company, I actually still work with them, but I'm not working under their roof. You know, I'm actually a client of theirs now. But when I was working with them, this gentleman came in and you just feel it. Like you trust him. He's asks questions. You just get that vibe like, yeah, I'm following him. How do you get to that point in a leadership situation?
One step at a time. You build culture, right? Culture beats everything. If you don't have an organizational culture that starts at the top and permeates through the organization, that supports strength, that supports building people, that supports candor, that supports all kinds of things around conversations, sometimes hard conversations.
Yeah.
But we trust the process. And at the end of the day, that's all human things. We'll get tested on it, by the way. So I've come in as a new leader and given a vision. This is where we're going to go. This is how we're going to get there, and this is why we need to get there. Everything I do or say after that is measured against that vision. And if I contradict that, then that starts to give people a reason to fear. When they fear, they don't trust. When they don't trust and they fear, it's harder to accomplish because we're stretching people. We're getting them outside of the comfort zone. We're giving them a vision and we're building them, because if you're not true to what vision you gave them, why do they think that you're going to be true to the vision that you gave that individual person?
For sure. And you just said fear. Well, just address what I said, where you didn't want to go in the office. You felt like you were on the spot. Like, you know, what's going to happen here? What is he going to say? How am I going to react to it?
Right.
That was a couple of managers back. This person, hey, can I meet you for a beer? Let's, you know, talk about some cool ideas. You know, it's just, but he's very professional. You know,
Right.
it's not like he, you know, walks around in jeans every day and it's just like kind of chilling out and everything. Hey, don't worry about people. It's all right. No, he's very, very, very professional, but approachable and trustworthy. And you don't fear him. He's like a magnet. You want to talk
That's
to
right.
him.
Well, the way that we do that in organizations, and this comes out of Gallup's playbook, it's really powerful stuff, is that we increase the frequency of managers talking to the people that report to them. So typically in a work environment, a lot of times we get annual reviews. We set annual goals and we don't hear anything in between, right? And so then we get to the end of the year and that review tells us all the places that we missed. That's not what we do. We do those things, but we also do development plans and we put managers together with their employees frequently for a frequent conversation. And they don't just talk about reviews. They talk about development. How are we building you? How are we setting the baseline? What are the things you're interested in? So that conversation is ongoing around the idea of moving things forward and not the one you fear. But
Love that.
everybody's got to buy in.
Everybody's got it. Well, you know, and it starts with the right person who's holding the right playbook.
That's where it all starts.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. You know, you mentioned the reviews. Yeah, how many? I've got friends that say it all the time. I got a 6-month review coming up. Instead of walking in there, I was like, yeah, all right. So how we doing? How's everything looking? It's like they fear it.
Right.
It's a shame.
So think about the mind shift here for a second, Steve. Okay. So when I have frequent communication, right? When I have frequent communication, and it's not just about what happened yesterday, but it's about what are they thinking about for tomorrow, right? What are their ambitions? What do they want? What are they interested in? Now we start to see, wow, we as a manager, we have the ability to see a person's ambitions more clearly. We have the ability to understand a person, so we put them in positions to succeed, and we don't just come back with the negative feedback, but we build on that strength. Now when you can do that in an organization, that fabric of that organization is going to win. And whatever business you're in, I don't think you'll find one single CEO is going to tell you they're playing to lose. But how often do we get in a situation where our actions and our commitment and our focus as managers, leaders, top to bottom, really reflect that winning attitude?
How do we connect with you? This is like, you really go into a deep dive. And as you speak, I feel the energy of the experience that you have, which runs deep. It really does. And it's all there on your website. How do we find you?
Website is www.open-playbook.com, and then OpenPlaybook LLC at gmail.com. So yeah, it is. It's just, I have the best job in the world. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. And we've talked before, and anybody wants to recap it, your history where you were in these big roles in terms of management, you weren't feeling it in many regards. It wasn't you. It wasn't your purpose. This is your purpose.
I think so.
I know so. I can feel it. You ooze, the passion for helping people.
Yeah.
And connected to your experience. Some can say, well, I got a certification and I'm a coach. All right, that's great. You were on the other side. You did it. You were there.
Yeah. I live there. I know what it means to be afraid. I know what it means to not trust. I know what it means for all of those things.
Yeah, you know what it means to get a 6-month review.
I do know what it means. I have a few of them that I have all of them that I saved actually, but at the end of the day, your review should happen every single day, and it shouldn't always be looking back forward. You want to win. You want to build an organization that wins. That's the way you do it. You build people that win.
All I'm going to say, based on what you just said, is the situations, the companies that were doing those reviews, they weren't well run.
Not by my opinion, no. So then let's go back to one other thing we said. What can I control and what can't I control? And I control what I can control, and I have to find my response to what I can't control. But at the end of the day, the people that work for me, and I think my record speaks strongly for it, are people who were selected wisely, built purposely, and who have gone on to succeed and do some pretty crazy, powerful stuff. And I'm proud as hell of all of them.
Open-playbook.com. Start the conversation. Larry, great having you on here again.
Thanks, Steve. Pleasure to be here.
Same. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.